You already know what time it is. Zeztz. Yes, I'm a day late. Forgive me, I had something to do yesterday that kind of took priority over this. But this was a damn cool episode. So obviously we begin where we left off with Baku stuck in a long nightmare. Basically meaning he can't wake up currently. As he falls through this void, he wakes up in this weird alternate dimension looking thing with Nim. Presumably because some way, somehow they are linked. She was able to teleport there or something. The dream logic isn't very sound for obvious reasons, so you just kind of have to go with it. But in this dream realm, he's surrounded by 4 distinct colors. A red section of the sky filled with these little body-looking things. A green section of the sky filled with these cells-looking things. A purple section filled with like geometric shapes and stuff. And a blue section filled with like pyramids and ancient culture. And obviously these are supposed to be a reference to Zetz's 4 forms. Physcam, Technolam, Esprime, and Peregrine. So presumably that has something to do with the way that the Zeztz powers work and were first activated. So Zero calls up Baku to give him his next mission, which is to eliminate the enemy, in this case being Nox. And just in time, as this little area starts to crumble, presumably from Zetz's prolonged presence in it. Then we get the intro, and after the intro, Nim decides to finally ask, what was it that made Baku have these bad dreams? What was it that made him end up becoming Zeztz? What was the very first thing that went wrong? And we see little baby Baku get struck by lightning. we knew this was like a thing for a while now. I just didn't think they'd have the balls to show it. But yeah, little Baku walking home from school gets struck by lightning. Over in the real world, though, Minami and Zero have an interaction where she is still kind of mad at them and at Baku for, keeping this a secret from them. And Zero continues to be extremely goddamn shady. And because he is, reliving one of the worst days of his entire life, Baku decides to also go down trip memory lane the rest of that day, where he notes that back in a specialized school, even though he wasn't the best at certain things, he did classify for one special class, which is interesting. It leads to this whole wider implication for the entirety of Zeztz. Because all the kids in this class put on these headphones, turn on these iPads, and this plays on like the screen. And have you seen the transformations for this show? Every time Zeztz transforms, his eyes used to light up kind of like that pattern. And on top of that, Nim notes they're all asleep. And to add more fuel to this already burning diesel fire, the teacher walks in wearing a ring marked with the number 4. The same ring that Baku is wearing when he's coded number 7. And then it's revealed this is Nox before he became a police officer and long before he'd eventually work with the Nightmares to bring back the Night Invoker buckle. To me, this 100% reads as Code was conditioning kids to become their next set of agents, which is completely insane. And it just... and you might be wondering, how is it that Baku has been interacting with Nox for like 15 episodes at this point and hasn't recognized him? We'll get to that. But we get a bit of Zero reflecting in on the fact that he's making Nox an enemy, because as we already know, Nox was a former agent, number 4. And we also get a bit of where Nox is in the real world, meaning that so far we actually have this really interesting dichotomy between the 3 main characters of the dream world, Baku, Nox, and Nim, who are all in long nightmares and can't wake up. In his own dream, though, Nox ends up visiting the same school, and he goes to the classroom where he ends up transforming to fight a nightmare. And this nightmare is was very hard to get like a good visual because he's just like this floating smoke cloud monster shitting on Nox. So, yeah. You do get a quick little cameo from the detectives as they set up that in the middle of the day at noon, the sky turns dark and leading to a bunch of questions, and they automatically assume it's probably a nightmare. Back in Baku's dream, we see past Nox give little words of encouragement to little Baku, and then as Baku and Nim try to chase after the dream version of Nox, this is getting really complicated really quickly. They find themselves back outside during the lightning storm, as Baku realizes that this part of his childhood is missing from his brain. Not that he forgot it, but that it's been erased. Now, who has the power to erase stuff that used to work for a secret shady organization that so far all the signs seem to indicate was indoctrinating Baku into being an agent at a young age? I wonder who could have done that. I'm just saying. And in case you don't get the very obvious sarcasm, I'm presuming Nox did it. The way I see this working out is that by the end of the day, he used to be agent number 4, and Nox Knight was like a prototype for the Zeztz system, and then he found out the truth about Code, and clearly Code didn't like that, and so potentially they erased his memories, which caused him to become a police officer, and the Night Invoker to get like petrified, now looping back right into where Zeztz started up. The timeline for this show got really weird, so that's my explanation for it. We'll have to see if I'm right. But as the lightning storm picks up, the dream mildly changes now to show Baku cowering in the rain, and Nim ends up running over to comfort the, dream Baku. And as our Baku holds on tightly to a blank capsule, he decides to make a vow to himself. And here's what I mean, that Nim was like covering little Baku. He says he's going to put an end to his own bad dreams, and he will use anything to do that, including bad dreams themselves, and creating the goddamn power-up. Yes! Oh, if you're only just now watching my reviews and you haven't been keeping up with past videos, I made it no secret that I am not a fan of the capsule dispensers. I think it's a lazy way to introduce forms. So the fact we actually have an earned power-up is awesome. And the fact that Baku uses his own bad dreams to now fight other people's bad dreams is so great. Because the way most people, including myself, expect this to work was a very generic kid's plot of guy uses his own goodwill to fight other people's bad things. Not guy uses his own bad things to fight other people's bad things. It's very basic like stuff, but seeing as it's not the most basic they could have done, I'm quite happy with it. And the completed capsule now is a bright yellow, and I gotta say, so far, what you're about to see makes this my favorite form in the show so far. Everything after this is running for second place, because god damn, this one's cool. Using the power of this new capsule, Nim and Baku find themselves in Nox's dream, as Nox's nightmare ends up turning into Baku, or taking the place of Baku. It's not quite clear what happened to the nightmare. He just kind of disappears, and now Baku's here. But now that these two are in the same place, it's time to turn Nox into a jobber and completely mess him up. And I find it funny that because this is like right before the little baked-in break for the commercial bumpers, it doesn't immediately say the name of the capsule. It just says Meza Mero, and then afterwards... Oh, before that, though, We get a quick little glimpse of the transformation, which he puts his left hand above his head and like snaps, and like lightning. You get like a little bit of static, which is a really cool visual. But then onto the proper transformation. Kamen Rider Zeztz Plasma. Wah! So he obviously cranks that shit up, and there's just an explosion of lightning as that runs past the camera. I can't do this scene justice. You have to go watch it. It is so goddamn cool. I can't put into words how my jaw went into another room with excitement from this. Like, my mind was blown. And in case you haven't noticed, the transformation is slightly different. In the past, all the other forms say, good morning, rider, and then Zeztz, repeats it 3 times, and then it says the name of the form. So, like, impact, stream, transform, wing, so on and so forth. Here, because it's an upgraded capsule, it does have something slightly different. It says, good morning, Inazuma rider, repeats Zetz's names, and then tells you that it's Plasma. And in case you're wondering, the full name for this form, much like all the others, is Zeztz Inazuma Plasma. So presumably, future upgrades, the first part of the name will be said during the transformation, and then like the specific variation of the form will play at the end like every other. And he zooms right past Nox, knocking him to the ground, as the eyes light up, giving us a great shot. And they immediately get to throwing hands. No time wasted. So they start going back and forth. Nox is like, I'm gonna kick your ass. And Zeztz is just like, nah, dude. As we get this really cool little bit of what superhero fans like myself like to refer to as flash time, which is basically the super speed from the perspective of the guy that has super speed. As he just dodges one of Nox's erasure-powered punches. And Nox ends up shooting out some hydrants to try and create basically a smokescreen to see Baku coming in early, giving us a fantastic visual. Oh, this is one of the best directed episodes purely because of this moment right here. Oh. And obviously, brand new form also means brand new weapon too. Ooh. And at this point, he is just showing off. Baku has no reason to be doing all this. This is extra purely for the sakes of ore farming on his opponents. Baku needs to stop doing this. This is like the 5th time in the last 3 episodes he's done shit like this. We get it, buddy. You badass. As he just starts immediately putting Nox into pack watch after Nox got literally only one good hit in on Baku. And he cranks up that finishing move, knocking Nox out of his transformation. However, as he goes to crank up another finisher to probably kill the dude, the plasma capsule gives out, causing him to de-transform. And we actually see that he is in physical pain afterwards, which is a very common, albeit starting to get very stale, way of making the first power-up rather limited. I can name like 5 examples of like the first or second quarter power-ups where the character like can't stay in it for long, so they have to de-transform quickly. It's very stale. I wish they would come up with some other way to make these forms have limited use, other than the fact, he hurts the rider too much, so they can't use it. But I ain't complaining. The rest of the episode is pretty damn good. Nox is still trying to, keep the moral standing high ground by telling Baku that because he's using the power of his own bad dream, it's doubly taking effect on him. But Baku doesn't really care. He only wants answers. And Nox explains that the thing that was critically erased from Baku was some form of a deep darkness. We also see that elsewhere in the real world, Baku creating the Inazuma Plasma Capsule created some sort of lightning ball storm thing in the real world. Which sets up the next episode really well. And because Baku doesn't wake up at the end of this episode, Minami goes to confront Zero again. And as Zero basically explains, presumably that Zeztz probably won't wake up until Nox is dead. That's not great. To end over in the dream world, Baku still pressures Nox to tell him everything. And all Nox tells him is that it is code, implying that code, as we've all been presuming here, since Zero has been shady since like episode 4, ain't the best organization around. And, as he reveals that code is plotting to turn everyone's lives into one long-lasting nightmare. And then Nox gets he decides, okay, now I'm gonna go because I've been thoroughly humiliated. And that's where the episode ends. Overall, this was a great episode, chock full of bringing more mysteries to the table and giving us some answers. Not all the answers, but a good chunk of them. And damn, the action was great. I loved it so much. Plasma is hands down my favorite form. Ever since I first saw the suit, I fell in love with it. And seeing it in the show, both its context as to it being made, its abilities, and the way this action was filmed, makes it so goddamn cool. But I will admit, the first time I was watching this, I was a little confused. Some of the story elements aren't explained the most clearly, so some of this is more theory-ish than like actual context we're given in the series. But that's a subject for another day. So if you don't want to get spoiled on the next week's preview, leave now. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Link to the full episode, as always, down there. People who don't care, stick around so you can see what episode 15 is about. So, obviously, because we just got the debut of Plasma, and we seem to be debuting Form, the Form's alternate mode, or, like we get one base form, and then one variation of that. Next week, we're debuting Inazuma Booster. I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to be given to Baku, because we already know that Zero is in possession of the booster capsule. We just don't know exactly how it's going to end up in Baku's hands. And as this preview goes to show, it seems like next week Baku will be confronting Zero about the truth of code and Nox specifically as agent number 4. Whereas now, Nox will we're probably going to get the rest of the backstory to Nox of how he used to work for Code, how he ended up at the police department, and how he eventually became Nox. And we get the title reveal that episode 15 is going to call Lighten. Yeah, I'm not really that excited for next week. Only thing I'm really looking forward to is the debut of Booster, because this preview just doesn't give me enough to make me wonder what's gonna come next. It just leaves me with just kind of this feeling of, oh yay, new form and some more answers. But yeah. So let me know what you think down below. If you enjoyed this episode, if you didn't enjoy this episode, what you thought of Plasma's Form's debut. If that was a little excessive, or if you're like me and you were just absolutely in love with the Form debut. Any and all opinions are welcome. Just remember, keep it civil. And I will see you all next week as we cover Kamen Zeztz episode 15.